Rain fell over the broken market of Orlon 5, washing dust and oil into dark rivers. The air smelled of metal and smoke, of places long forgotten by the rich worlds above. Evan Cross walked slowly through the rows of junk stalls, his boots splashing in the puddles. He was a scavenger, a man who lived by finding what others threw away. Today he searched for old ship parts, things he could fix and sell. His eyes were sharp, trained to see value where others saw only trash. But today he found something no one else dared to touch. At the far end of the market, under a flickering streetlight, a young alien girl sat tied to a rusted post. Her skin was pale silver, her hair tangled, and her eyes closed tight as if she wanted to disappear. A dirty sign hung from her neck, written in shaky letters, "Take her for a bottle of liquor." Laughter came from a group of miners nearby. They sat around a fire barrel, drinking, pointing, joking. One of them shouted, "She's no good for work. Maybe someone will trade her for fun." Their cruel laughter echoed through the market. Evan stopped, his stomach twisting. He had seen bad things on the edge of space, but this was different. The girl looked barely alive, shaking from cold and fear. Her hands were tied behind her back with thick wire. He looked around, but no one cared. People just walked past, pretending she was invisible. To them, she was nothing. Just another problem best ignored. He stepped closer, and the laughter quieted a little. One of the miners called out, "Don't waste your time, stranger, she's trouble." Evan ignored him. His coat dripped rain as he crouched beside the girl. "Hey," he said softly, "can you hear me?" The girl flinched but didn't speak. Her eyes opened just enough for him to see a faint blue glow beneath her lashes. "Where's your family?" he asked. She didn't answer. She only whispered something that sounded like numbers. 7, 8, 1. 7. Her voice broke like a whisper of wind. A tall miner stood up, bottle in hand. "She's lab trash," he said, "from the old hybrid projects. Worth less than dirt." Another added, "Take her if you want, human. Maybe she'll curse you too." The group laughed again. Raising their bottles, Evan's jaw tightened. He reached for his knife and cut the wire from her wrists. The miner shouted, but he didn't care. He wrapped his coat around her small shoulders and lifted her up. She was light, too light, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Her breathing was shallow. Her head rested against his chest. And for a moment he felt her heart. Fast. Scared, alive. "Where are you taking her?" One of the men called, "She's marked property." Evan turned his head slightly, his voice calm but hard. "She's nobody's property," he said. The miners muttered curses, but none followed. Maybe they were too drunk, or maybe something in Evan's eyes made them stop. He carried her through the rain toward his small cargo ship waiting outside the city gates. The girl barely moved. The storm howled. Lightning flashed across the sky. His ship, the Emberlight, was old but reliable. He opened the hatch. The warm air rushing out to meet the cold night. He laid her gently on a bunk. Checking her pulse, her skin was warm now, glowing faintly as if light lived beneath it. He turned on the med scanner. The machine beeped uncertainly. "Warning," the ship's AI said. "Unknown life form detected. Hybrid signature. Error reading DNA." Evan frowned. "Hybrid?" He repeated, "Explain." The AI paused. "Part human, part unknown genetic source. Origin classified." Evan sat beside her, rubbing his temples. He looked at the girl again. She looked peaceful now, asleep, as if for the first time in days. He poured her a little water, careful not to wake her. The scanner showed her vitals stabilizing, her wounds healing faster than normal. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "What did they do to you?" He murmured. The rain outside grew heavier. thunder rolling across the metal fields of Orlon 5. He remembered the miner's words: lab, trash, hybrid, curse. He didn't believe in curses, but he knew cruelty when he saw it. Hours later, the ship's engines hummed to life. Evan looked out through the cockpit window. The city lights flickered in the distance, disappearing beneath the storm. He didn't know what trouble he had just invited, but something inside him said it was right. Behind him, the girl stirred, her voice weak but clear. "You shouldn't have taken me," she whispered. Evan turned, surprised. Her eyes were open now, glowing softly like stars through fog. "Why not?" he asked. She looked at him, her gaze both afraid and grateful. "Because they will come for you," she said. "And they never stop." Evan said nothing. He reached out and placed a blanket over her. "Then we'll see if they can catch us," he replied quietly. He sat in the pilot's chair, his hand on the throttle. The engines roared. The ember light lifted off the wet ground, cutting through the storm clouds into the dark sky as lightning flashed below. The sign that once hung around her neck fell to the mud and was washed away by rain. The words, "Take her for a bottle of liquor," disappeared into the dirt, leaving only silence, and somewhere far above that dying world, a human and an alien girl began a story that no one expected, a story born not from power or greed, but from one man's refusal to trade kindness for comfort. One act that would echo across the stars. Rain poured down over the broken market of Orlon 5, turning the dust into black mud and washing the color out of the neon lights. The air smelled of rust, smoke, and old oil. Evan Cross moved slowly through the narrow aisles, his boots splashing through puddles as traders shouted their prices for useless junk. He wasn't there to buy anything fancy. He was just another scavenger looking for ship parts. Bits of metal, maybe a working fuel cell, anything that could keep his old cargo ship flying one more week. But then he saw something that made him stop. At the far end of the street, under a flickering lamp, a young alien girl sat tied to a metal post. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled, her head bowed. Around her neck hung a sign made from scrap plastic, painted with shaky letters: "Take her for a bottle of liquor." People walked by and laughed. Others shook their heads and turned away. A group of miners sat nearby, drinking and pointing at her. Their laughter was loud. "Heartless," one of them shouted. "Anyone wants her? She's yours for a bottle. Half if it's strong." They roared with laughter again. Evan froze where he stood. He'd seen bad things in the outer colonies, but never this. The girl looked weak, trembling in the cold. Her silver skin caught the light like metal. Her small hands were bound tight behind her. He walked closer, ignoring the looks he got. Rain dripped off his coat. His boots sank into the mud as he knelt beside her. "Hey," he said softly, "can you hear me?" She didn't answer. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was barely conscious. He noticed her breathing was shallow, slow. "Don't waste your time," a miner called out. "She's from the labs. Hybrid trash." "Not even a real person," another man chuckled. "Maybe cursed too. That's why no one touches her." Evan looked up, his jaw tightening. He hated the way they said it. Trash. Like she was nothing. He turned back to the girl, pulled a small knife from his belt, and cut the rope around her wrists. The moment the wire fell, she flinched like she expected pain. Her skin had marks from where it had cut deep. "Easy," he murmured, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "You're safe now." The miners started to shout, "Hey, she's not yours." One of them yelled. Evan stood up slowly, holding the girl close. His voice was calm but hard. "She's not anyone's," he said. "She's coming with me." No one moved, maybe because of the way he said it, or maybe because they didn't want to fight a man who didn't care what happened next. They laughed again, forcing bravado. "Fine," one said. "You'll regret it soon enough." "Human," Evan didn't answer. He carried her through the rain, past the junk stalls, through the open gate that led to the landing fields. His ship waited there, old, scarred, but his home. He laid her gently on the passenger bunk, the light from the control panel flickering across her face. He checked her pulse, weak but steady. Her body was freezing, so he turned on the heater. The ship's AI voice broke the silence. "Warning," it said. "Unknown life form detected. Analysis incomplete. Run a scan," Evan ordered. The machine hummed, blue light passing over her body. "Result," the AI said after a pause. "Part human, part unknown genetic source. Classified signature." Evan frowned. He'd heard rumors about lab-made hybrids. Creatures created for experiments, some meant for war, some for medicine. Most destroyed when the projects ended. Maybe she was one of them. Left behind when no one wanted her anymore. He poured a little water into a cup and pressed it to her lips. She stirred, eyes half open. Glowing faint blue in the dim light, she drank weakly, then whispered something that sounded like numbers. 7, 8, 1. 7, what? He asked, leaning closer, but she had already fallen back asleep. He sat there in silence for a while. Watching her breathe, he should have felt regret. Maybe fear, but instead, he just felt angry. Angry that anyone could treat another living being like garbage. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The market lights flickered out. Evan sighed. He didn't know who she was or why they had left her. But he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let her die there. Not while he was still breathing. Hours passed before she finally stirred again. Her voice was soft, fragile. "You shouldn't have taken me," she said. Evan looked up from the control panel. "Why not?" he asked. Her eyes opened wider now, glowing like tiny stars through mist. "Because they will come for you," she whispered. "And they never stop." Evan stared at her, then at the rain beating on the cockpit glass. He didn't know who they were, but he knew the sound of a hunted soul when he heard it. He pulled the blanket tighter around her and said quietly, "Then let them come." Outside, the storm grew stronger as his engines warmed. The ship lifted off the wet landing field, its lights cutting through the dark sky. Behind them, the sign that once read, "Take her for a bottle of liquor," lay in the mud, slowly fading under the rain, and somewhere in the storm clouds above Orlon 5. A human and an alien girl began the story no one else would dare to tell. A story that started not with power or greed, but with a simple choice, kindness. The ship drifted through the gray clouds of Orlon 5 until the storm was nothing but a memory behind them. Evan sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The hum of the engines was soft and steady. But inside his chest, his heart beat faster than the machine. The girl was still asleep, wrapped in his coat, breathing slow. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the cabin lights. Like the reflection of a moon on water, he had taken in strays before broken drones. Damaged machines, but never someone like her. She was alive, strange, and far more human than the scanners said. He didn't even know her name. For hours he stared at the console, unsure of what to do next. The world below would be angry he took her, and whoever they were. He knew they wouldn't stop when she finally woke. Her eyes opened with a dim blue light. She sat up weakly, still trembling. "Where? Where are we?" she asked in a small, unsure voice. "Far away from the people who tied you up," Evan said gently. "You're safe here." She looked at him, confused. "Why?" She whispered, "You don't know me." Evan smiled slightly. "Don't need to," he said. "You needed help. That's all." For a moment, She just stared, as if trying to understand the word help. Then she nodded slowly and looked around the cabin, touching the metal walls as though they were something sacred. Evan walked to the food dispenser and filled a cup with warm liquid. "Here," he said. "Drink this." She hesitated, but took it. Sipping carefully, her hands were small and thin. But steady now. After a long silence, she spoke again. "My name is Lyra," she said softly. "At least, that's what they called me." "Lyra," Evan repeated. "Pretty name." She nodded, then asked, "Where are you taking me?" He shrugged. "Anywhere but back there." But before he could say more, the ship's alarm started to blink. A red symbol flashed on the screen. "Incoming transmission. Unknown source." Evan frowned and pressed the button. The voice that came through was cold, mechanical. "Pilot of vessel Emberlight," it said. "You have taken restricted property belonging to the Orlon Biogenics Division. Return the specimen immediately or face termination." Evan muted the comms and looked back at Lyra. She sat frozen, her face pale. "They found us," she whispered. "They always do." "Who are they?" Evan asked. She looked down at her hands. "The people who made me," she said. "They called us the Project Lyric. I was made in a lab, part human, part something else. We were supposed to survive radiation worlds, heal faster, adapt better. But when the war ended, they destroyed us. I was the last one left." Evan felt cold all over. "Destroyed?" He asked quietly. She nodded. "They said we were dangerous, imperfect, that we shouldn't exist." The scanner beside them beeped again, showing 5 red dots approaching fast. "Looks like your creators are still interested in their mistake," he muttered. Lyra's eyes widened. "You have to let me go," she said quickly. "They'll kill you if they find me." Evan shook his head. "Not happening," he said firmly. "I don't leave people behind." "You don't understand," she whispered. "They will destroy your ship, burn everything. They want no trace of me alive." Evan turned on the autopilot and stood up. "Then we'll make sure there's nothing for them to find," he said. Moving toward the control panel, his fingers flew across the buttons. Activating the defense shields and rerouting power to the thrusters, the voice returned on the radio. "Sharper now. Final warning, return the specimen, or we will open fire." Evan smirked. "Not today," he whispered. He looked at Lyra. "Strap in." The ship roared as it turned sharply into the black void. Stars streaked past the windows. The enemy ships closed in fast, red lights flashing like predators' eyes. Lyra gripped the seat, fear and light flickering together in her gaze. A blast of plasma shot past them, shaking the Emberlight hard. "Hold on." Evan shouted. The ship dove down through an asteroid belt, rocks spinning wildly around them. Pieces of metal scraped the hull, alarms blaring. But Evan's hands never left the controls. "Are you always this reckless?" Lyra shouted over the noise. "Only when I'm saving someone who shouldn't exist," he said with a grin. Despite the danger, she almost smiled. Her eyes glowed brighter now, like energy flowing through her veins. A second blast hit the rear engine, lights flickered. "Shields down to 40%, the AI warned. Can you do something?" Evan yelled, "Anything?" Lyra closed her eyes, whispering softly. Her skin shimmered faintly. The lights on the control board stabilized. Systems came back online. The AI spoke again. Power restored. Anomaly detected. Evan stared at her in shock. "Did you just fix my ship?" She opened her eyes, panting. "I can feel the systems," she said. "I don't know how, but I can make them listen to me." He laughed once, half in disbelief, half in relief. "Then keep talking to them," he said. "We're not dying today." The Emberlight spun around a massive asteroid, the enemy ships colliding with debris behind them. One exploded in a flash of red fire. The others pulled back, losing their signal. Silence filled the cabin again. Only the hum of the engines remained. Evan leaned back in his seat, breathing hard. "You weren't lying," he said. "They really won't stop." Lyra looked at him with tired eyes. "I told you," she whispered. "I was never meant to live free." Evan stared at the stars for a long time, then said quietly, "Then maybe it's time someone proved them wrong." The girl blinked. Surprised. "Why do you care?" she asked softly. He looked at her with a faint smile. "Because out there," he said, pointing at the endless sky, "every life deserves a chance. Even the ones they say shouldn't exist." The ship drifted deeper into the void, silent, glowing faint blue from the energy inside it. And for the first time, Lyra didn't feel like a mistake. She felt alive, and beside her, a human who had risked everything just to remind her that she mattered. The ember light tore through the black sea of space, its engines burning white against the dark. Evan gripped the control stick as the ship shook. Alarms flashing red across the dashboard. "They're still behind us," he muttered. The radar showed 3 ships, fast and armed, closing the distance with each passing second. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes half closed, breathing quick, the glow in her skin pulsing like a heartbeat. "They won't stop," she said softly. "They never do." Evan gave a quick grin, more to keep her calm than anything. "Then we'll just have to make them lose their way," he said, flipping a switch that sent the ember light diving into a field of shattered asteroids. Broken rocks floated like drifting bones. "Silent and endless. Welcome to broken space," he said. "Not many ships come here and make it out." The enemy ships followed close, bright engines slicing through the dark. The first plasma blast grazed the ember light's wing. Shaking the cabin hard, sparks flew. Lyra screamed, clutching the chair's edge. "Hold tight," Evan shouted, spinning the ship through a narrow gap between 2 massive stones. The enemy ship behind them wasn't fast enough. It hit a rock and exploded, the flash lighting up the entire field. "One down," Evan said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "2 to go." Lyra stared at him, confused. "Why do you sound calm?" she asked. "We could die." He chuckled. "Because panic never helped anyone fly faster." She looked out the window, watching debris float past. "You're strange," she said. "Humans always are." "Yeah," he said. "That's what saves us sometimes." The second enemy ship launched a tracking missile, the signal blinking red on the scanner. "Incoming projectile," the AI warned. Evan cursed. "And you do that thing again?" he asked. "With the systems?" Lyra hesitated. "I can try." She pressed her palm to the wall, her eyes glowing brighter. The air around her hummed faintly. "Come on," she whispered. "Listen to me." The missile sped closer, but suddenly the ember light's outer panels shifted, the ship twisting its electromagnetic signature. The missile lost lock and flew past, exploding harmlessly into space. Evan stared in disbelief. "You actually did it," he said. "You made my ship invisible." Lyra breathed hard, shaking. "Not for long," she said. "It drains me." Evan turned off the main thrusters, letting them drift quietly among the rocks. The last enemy ship hovered nearby, scanning for signals. "We'll hide here till it gives up," he whispered. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of the ship's heartbeat echoing softly. Evan looked at her. "What else can you do?" he asked. She frowned, thinking. "I don't know everything," she said. "They didn't tell me much. Only that I was designed to survive what humans couldn't: radiation, cold, poisoned skies. They said I was part of a cure. But then they decided people like me were a mistake." Evan's jaw tightened. "People always fear what they don't understand," he said. "But they forget fear never built anything worth keeping." Lyra looked at him, her voice small. Then why did you save me? He met her gaze. Because someone had to, he said, and I was there. She blinked, her expression softening. For the first time since he found her, she didn't look afraid, but peace never lasted long. The radar beeped again, another ship entering the field, larger than the others. That's no patrol ship. Evan muttered. The computer scanned it. Identification. Orlon Biogenics Command Vessel Class Destroyer. They brought a command ship for me? Lyra whispered. That's impossible. Evan's eyes narrowed. Means you're more important than they told you. The destroyer began releasing drones. Hundreds of them, small but deadly. Each one sent out a red scanning beam. Sweeping through the asteroids, Evan started the engines again. Hold on, he said. We're getting out the hard way. The ember light shot forward, weaving between rocks as beams of light sliced past them. The drones moved like a swarm, fast and merciless. The ship's shield flickered under the hits. Lyra reached out, her hands glowing. I can hold them back for a moment, she said, but I need you to trust me. Evan nodded. Always, he said. She closed her eyes, the air around her vibrating like wind through metal. Energy poured from her fingertips, forming a faint blue field around the ship. The drones froze mid-flight. Systems flickering, Evan used the moment to push the throttle to maximum. The ember light roared through the asteroid belt, leaving the drones trapped in their own static field. As ship burst out into open space, stars gleaming ahead, Evan grinned. You did it, he said. We're clear. Lyra slunk in her seat, exhausted. Not for long, she whispered. They'll track me again. Evan glanced at her. Then we'll just keep running until we find somewhere they can't reach. He looked at the navigation map. The nearest system was a frozen moon orbiting a dead planet. We'll hide there, he said. Let the engines cool and figure out what you really are. Lyra nodded weakly. You're risking everything for me, she said. Why? Evan smiled faintly. Because kindness doesn't need a reason. She looked out at the stars, her voice trembling. No one's ever said that to me before. Then you've been around the wrong kind of people. He said quietly. Hours later, the ember light descended through pale clouds onto the frozen moon. The ship's engines hissed as they landed on a ridge of ice. Outside, the planet's surface shimmered like glass under distant starlight. Inside, Lyra leaned against the wall, her glow dim but steady. You saved me again, she murmured. Evan smiled, tired but proud. Yeah, he said softly. But you saved me too, kid. She frowned. How? He looked out the window, his reflection fading into the endless dark. Because for the first time in years, he said, I remembered what it feels like to do something good. The cold moon waited in silence, the stars watching from above. And there, between a human who refused to give up and an alien girl who wasn't supposed to exist, a fragile hope began to grow, one that no lab, no command ship, and no fear could ever kill. The frozen moon was silent, except for the faint hum of the ember light's engines cooling in the cold air. The ground outside was a sheet of glassy ice that cracked softly under each gust of wind. Evan stood by the window, watching the storm clouds swirl across the horizon. His reflection looked older, more tired, but somehow more alive than before. Behind him, Lyra sat near the heater, wrapped in a blanket. Her skin's glow had faded to a soft shimmer. Like light trapped under water, they had been hiding for 2 days. No signals, no engines, no contact with anyone. Evan used the time to repair the ship's damaged wing while Lyra slept and healed. But the silence had started to feel heavy. Too quiet, like the calm before something bad. Evan turned to her. You're getting stronger, he said with a small smile. Lyra nodded slowly. A little, she said. But my body feels wrong. It's like part of me isn't mine. Evan sat across from her, setting his tools aside. You're still alive, he said. That's what matters. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. You don't understand, Evan. They made me from pieces human, alien, machine. I was never supposed to think, never supposed to feel, but I do, and that's what scares them. Evan leaned back, his voice quiet but steady. Then we'll keep scaring them, he said, because what they fear most is a life they can't control. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the wind howled outside. Then, without warning, the ship's console lit up red. Alert. External signal detected. Evan jumped to the controls, his face tightening. They found us, he said. How? Lyra stood up, trembling. They track my energy. I told you, they can sense it even across systems. Then we shut it down, he said. Whatever's glowing, stop it. I can't, she whispered. It's not something I turn off. The radar beeped 5 enemy dropships entering orbit. Damn it, Evan muttered. He grabbed his blaster and looked at her. We need to move now. They rushed out into the storm, the icy wind slicing against their faces. The sky above glowed with falling lights, enemy shuttles descending fast. Evan led her toward a half-buried communication tower nearby, a relic from a mining outpost long abandoned. The metal door creaked open as they stepped inside, dust and cold air swirling around. We'll hold here, he said, at least until the storm covers our heat signature. Lyra's hands glowed slightly, her fear showing as faint light under her skin. They won't stop, Evan, she said. They don't care about you. They just want to erase me. Evan checked his blaster. Then they'll have to go through me first. The sound of engines filled the air, boots hitting the ground outside, voices shouting commands. Evan peeked through a crack in the wall. Armored soldiers spread across the field, moving in lines, drones floating above them, red eyes scanning the snow. Stay low, he whispered. Lyra crouched behind a metal crate, her breathing fast. The soldiers drew closer. Their scanners flashed red light through the cracks. Evan aimed carefully and fired. A bright bolt hit one of the drones, exploding it into shards. The soldiers reacted instantly, firing back. The tower shook under the impact. Go, Evan shouted. Run. Lyra hesitated. No, she cried. If I go, they'll kill you. Better me than you, he shouted back, reloading. You can still change things. Lyra. Tears filled her glowing eyes. I don't want to be the reason someone dies again, she whispered. Evan turned to her, voice sharp. You're not a reason. You're the proof they were wrong. Outside, more soldiers surrounded the tower. The sound of heavy cannons echoed through the storm. Evan fired again, then ducked behind the wall as the tower shook. They're bringing heavy fire, he said through gritted teeth. We're out of time. Lyra stepped out from behind the crate, her hands shaking but steady. I can stop them, she said quietly. Evan looked at her. No, you'll kill yourself, she shook her head. Not if you believe in me. Before he could stop her, she walked into the open doorway, snow whipping around her like a storm of light. The soldiers shouted, aiming their weapons. Target located. One called. Lyra closed her eyes. Her body began to glow brighter, blue light spreading from her hands to the ground. The snow around her melted instantly. The soldiers stopped, shielding their eyes. Lyra! Evan shouted, but his voice was lost in the wind. A pulse of light burst from her chest, silent but powerful. It spread across the field like a wave, freezing every machine it touched. Drones fell from the sky. Guns shut down. Even the soldiers' visors flickered to black. Within seconds, the whole battlefield went still. When the light faded, Lyra fell to her knees, steam rising from her skin. Evan ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground. Lyra, stay with me, he said, his voice breaking. She looked up at him weakly, her skin dimming. Did it work? She whispered. Evan nodded, his throat tight. You stopped them, he said. You did it. She smiled faintly. Good, she whispered. Then maybe kindness was worth something after all. Her eyes closed, her body limp. Evan held her close, the storm howling around them. The silence after the battle felt endless. He looked at the frozen field, dozens of soldiers and machines. All quiet, all lifeless. He carried her back to the Emberlight, laying her gently on the bunk. Her pulse was faint, but still there. He sat beside her, watching her breathe. The AI flickered back to life. Energy surge detected, it said. Unknown signal broadcast during pulse. Evan frowned. Broadcast? He repeated, yes, the AI said. It was a message. What message? He asked quietly. The AI's voice softened. She sent her coordinates to every human channel in range. Evan blinked, stunned. She called for help. He looked down at her, his voice barely a whisper. You clever girl, he said. Outside, the storm cleared, and in the far sky, faint lights appeared, human patrol ships approaching from orbit. They had heard her call. And soon, the truth about Lyra and what she was made for would no longer stay buried. Evan sat there beside her, the warmth of her light still fading on his hands, and he realized that kindness always had a price, but sometimes it was the only thing in the universe worth paying. The first rays of dawn touched the frozen moon, turning the field of ice into glass that shimmered beneath the cold light. The battle was over, the soldiers gone, their machines silent, and the Emberlight stood alone against the horizon. Steam rising from its damaged engines, Evan sat beside Lyra inside the ship, his hand wrapped around hers. Her skin was still warm, but her glow had dimmed almost completely. The pulse she had released had saved them, but it had drained her nearly to death. He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. Come on, kid, he whispered. You didn't do all that just to quit now. Lyra's eyes fluttered open slowly, weak but aware. Did it work? She asked softly, her voice barely more than a breath. Evan nodded. Yeah, you fried their systems clean. No one's following us now. She smiled faintly. Good, she murmured. Then maybe you can rest. Not until you're safe, he said. His voice quiet but firm. The ship's console beeped suddenly, flashing green lights across the screen. Incoming transmission, the AI announced. Evan turned toward the comms and opened the channel. A woman's voice came through, steady and official. This is Captain Rhea of the Terran Recovery Fleet. We received a distress signal from this moon. Identify yourself. Evan leaned closer to the mic. Evan Cross, civilian scavenger. I've got someone who needs help. She's not normal, but she's alive. There was a pause. Then the captain replied, We saw the signal. It carried human genetic markers, but also something new. Stay put. We're landing. Minutes later, the sky filled with light. 3 silver ships descended through the pale air, kicking up clouds of frost as they landed nearby. Soldiers in clean white armor stepped out, but they weren't like the ones from Orlon Biogenics. Their insignias bore the Earth, insignia real humans, not corporate killers. Evan stepped outside as they approached, his blaster holstered, his hands raised. Easy, he called. No one's fighting. The lead officer stopped in front of him, her helmet retracting to reveal dark eyes and a calm face. You're Evan Cross, she said. The man who sent out that message. He nodded. Not me, he said, glancing back toward the ship. Her, the officer looked confused. The hybrid? Evan's jaw tightened. She has a name, he said. Lyra? They followed him inside the Emberlight, where Lyra lay on the bunk, breathing faintly. Her faint glow reflected off the walls. The captain knelt beside her, scanning her vitals. Incredible, she whispered. We thought all the hybrid projects were destroyed, but she's stable. More advanced than anything we've seen. Evan crossed his arms. She's not a project. She's a person. The captain looked up at him, studying his face. You risked your life to save her, she said. Why? Evan gave a tired smile. Because someone had to remind the universe what humanity means. For a long time. No one spoke. The soldiers exchanged glances. Unsure what to say, finally. The captain nodded. We'll take her with us. She deserves medical care and protection. Lyra stirred, whispering faintly. Evan, where are you going? He knelt beside her, taking her hand again. With you, he said, for as long as you want me there. Her lips curved into a weak smile. Then I want you there forever, she whispered. Before her eyes closed again, hours passed. The recovery fleet loaded supplies, repaired the Emberlight systems, and began transmitting data back to the Terran Council. Reports of Lyra's existence spread quickly. Some called her a miracle, others a danger, but one thing was clear. The truth could no longer be buried. In the weeks that followed, Lyra recovered slowly. Her light returned, brighter than before. She walked the halls of the fleet ship, her presence calm and strange. The soldiers whispered that she was something new, something between human and alien. Proof that compassion could build what science alone could not. Evan stayed close to her side, teaching her how to pilot small crafts, how to laugh, how to live, sometimes late at night. They stood by the observation window together, watching the stars drift past. She would look at him with quiet wonder and say, You changed everything, Evan. You turned an experiment into a person. He would smile softly and answer, No, Lyra, you changed me first. One day. As the fleet prepared to leave the system, Captain Rhea approached them. The Council wants to meet her, she said. They believe Lyra might be the key to rebuilding our future with the alien colonies. The first bridge instead of another war. Evan looked at Lyra. You ready for that? Lyra nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. If kindness can start a war, she said, then maybe it can end one too. They boarded the Emberlight again, its engines humming with new strength. The frozen moon faded behind them, the stars ahead opening like a promise, as the ship sailed through the endless dark. Evan glanced at Lyra. You know, he said, when I found you tied to that post, I thought I was saving you. Lyra smiled, her voice warm. You did, she said, but you also saved yourself. He chuckled softly. Maybe we both did. Outside the window, a streak of light crossed the stars, the first dawn of a new alliance forming somewhere out there. In the cold quiet of space, and the story of the man who refused to trade kindness for comfort, who took home a girl the galaxy had thrown away, became something greater, a story told from planet to planet, whispered in markets and spaceports. The tale of the human who changed the fate of worlds in the endless dark of the universe. One act of mercy still burned brighter than any star.